Hello everyone, my name is Sugam. I am Assistant Professor of English at Khalsa College of Law, Amritsar. It's my privilege to be here in front of you through KCGC TV to present my lecture on the topic Significance of Communication Skills. First of all, I would like to explain what is communication. Communication is one of the most fundamental needs of human beings. The word communication is derived from the Latin word communis or communicare, which means to make common. To make common means to share. It is sharing of thoughts, ideas, emotions, feelings between two persons. In other words, we can say communication is exchange of ideas, information, messages, etc. Now, business communication. Business communication can take place between two individuals or two organizations. It can also take place between an individual and an organization. Now, I'll discuss its forms. What are the various forms of communication? Forms can be classified into different categories. First category is number of persons involved in communication, and second category is medium. What kind of medium used in communication? So, I'll explain first category. Under the first category, number of persons, there are four different types. First one is intrapersonal, interpersonal, group communication, mass communication. I'll explain all these types one by one. First of all, I'll explain what is intrapersonal communication. Now, as the name indicates, intrapersonal. So, intrapersonal, here the communicator is involved with his own self. He is talking to his own self in his own mind. Here the individual is both communicator and communicatee. This sort of communication helps a lot a person to analyze, to interpret his thoughts. And all these plans further help him to decide his course of action. This sort of internal communication is very much important. Now comes second type, that is interpersonal communication. What is interpersonal? Inter means between. So, interpersonal communication is exchange of information, ideas, messages between two persons. Dialogue, conversation, interview in which there is interaction between two different persons are considered as examples of interpersonal communication. Third category is group communication. Group communication takes place in a conference or meeting of members of business organization. Views, opinions, ideas are freely voiced and shared by members of the organization. Basically, the aim of such type of communication is common one, that is well-being and better profitability of business organization. This communication is very important. It plays a crucial role. Group communication can take place in both large as well as in small groups. So, where each individual retains his or her own identity. Fourth one is mass communication. Mass means majority, large group of people. So, mass communication means where information is conveyed to large groups of people through the medium of radio, television, newspapers, etc. This sort of communication provides no scope for feedback and thus assumes the nature of one-way communication. Basically, this sort of communication should be used in an appropriate context. In mass communication, each individual loses his position of faceless being. He is reduced to the position of faceless being. Second main important category is medium. So, what kind of medium used in communication? So, medium communication can be used on the basis of medium for communicating with others. And this category is divided into two separate parts, verbal and non-verbal. So we all know, as we all know, what is verbal? Verbal means when we communicate through words. So verbal means pertaining to words. Verbal communication means communication through words. These words can be spoken as well as written. So verbal communication can be further classified under four different types: oral communication, written communication, audio-visual communication, and computer-based communication. So first of all, I'll explain what is oral communication. Now oral, as the name indicates, oral communication basically is communication through spoken words. These words can be spoken through face-to-face interaction with another person. So such type of words can also be spoken with the help of telephone, voicemail, etc. Second one is written communication. So written communication basically is interaction, it is communication with the help of written words. These words, this sort of communication can be done with the help of letters, memos, notes, reports, etc. Third one, now comes third one, that is audio-visual communication. We all know what is audio-visual. Audio means pertaining to hearing and visual means what we saw with our eyes. So audio-visual, purely audio-visual aids are like tape recorders, records. So audio-visual aids create a powerful impact on communicator's mind through the medium of eyes and ears. Fourth one is computer-based communication. Computer has brought about a great revolution in the field of communication. People may be sitting in far distant corners of the world. They can still interact through computer-based means of communication, such as video conferencing, fax, etc. For example, fax. Fax transmits instant documents to far-off places. So, this sort of communication, this type of communication helps a lot in converting the whole world into a global village. Thus promoting worldwide trade and commerce. So, this is a very important communication in the field of communication skills. Now, second broad category is non-verbal communication. Now, as we all know, what is non-verbal? As verbal means communication through words, so non-verbal means communication without words. So, wordless messages such as body movements, facial expressions, body gestures or smile, all these signs come under the category of non-verbal communication. So, non-verbal communication, according to experts, non-verbal communication is the more truthful media as compared to verbal one, because we may misrepresent our feelings by wrong use of words, but non-verbal media such as our body gestures, our body movements, our facial expressions, our smile, our eyes convey our real feelings. So, it is more truthful media as compared to verbal one. In short, I can say that communication plays a vital role in human life. It plays a very big role in human life. It helps facilitate exchange of information, develop relationship with others. The role of communication skills in our day-to-day life cannot be underestimated. It cannot be ignored. Now I'll explain its barriers. Barriers or obstacles in the field of communication. There are so many barriers in the field of communication. The process of communication is very crucial step, and there are so many barriers that create hurdle in the way of communication. For example, linguistic barrier, emotional barriers, psychological barriers are the main ones. Linguistic barrier. Every region has its own language. So, it is very difficult to communicate in different languages. So, if we are not able to understand language, then we can't communicate. We can't communicate in effective way. So, that is a linguistic barrier. So, we can communicate properly only if we know language of each other, only if we know about each other's languages. For example, if we communicate in English, other person also able to learn to speak English. He should also know the English, he should also know that language. Only then he is able to understand, he is able to communicate properly. Second important barrier is psychological barrier. Now there are so many psychological barriers, like for example there are so many emotions in our, like phobia, depression, speech disorder, such stage phobia. These kind of emotions, these kind of barriers create hurdle and ease and create obstacle and limit the ease of communication. Third one is emotional barrier. Now emotions of a person's well-being. There are so many emotions of a human being, for example frustration, anger. We sometimes we so frustrate so much, we show anger at some time, and such barriers, such emotions create obstacle in the field of communication. It creates obstacle in the field of communication and it obstructs, it hampers, the ease of communication. So these are the very important barriers and we should try to overcome these barriers. For example, we should use simple language, we should use we should use sentences in a very simple language so that everyone is able to understand that. If only if he is able to understand, then only he can interact, he can interpret that language. And communication is a two-way process, it is not a one-way process. So we can communicate only if we both sided, if we both parties know the language, know the proper way of communication, only then there should be proper medium through which we communicate. So in short, I can say that communication plays a vital role, it plays a huge role in human life. It has a specific role in every field, in all spheres of life. It helps facilitate exchange of information and develop relationships with others. The role of communication lives skills in our day-to-day life cannot be underestimated. It cannot be ignored. Thanks a lot.